Hi, Sarah here. I just want to share my thoughts on episode 3 of Alien Earth. So far, I'm still liking the show. I think it's very well done. We open up, with the cool, like the title shot with flashes from the previous episode, kind of recapping things for you as the title of the show appears on the screen. I think that's really cool that they do that. I haven't really seen it before. I like it, and it looks like that's what they're going to be continuing to do throughout the whole series. Anyway, we open up with this great scene between Jo, Wendy, and a xenomorph. We get to see some of the acid blood in action. There's a lot of fighting and craziness, and Jo gets severely injured, but Wendy comes in and is able to kind of put this meat hook into the xenomorph's like tongue, basically to like pull it off Jo before he gets killed. She manages to pull the xenomorph off. There's like a door, a big like kind of warehouse door in the background, and her plan is like she'll drag the xenomorph over there, throw the xenomorph in the room, close the door. Her and Jo are then safe. But what happens is, as she's putting the xenomorph, just as the door is about to close, of course, the xenomorph pulls her in with it into the room, and we get this great, just like off camera, she kills the xenomorph. It's a lot of banging and screaming, and Jo is like desperately trying to get the door back open again, and then it's silent, and he gets the door to open, and there's a xenomorph with its head cut off, and Wendy standing there, and it's just kind of like, wow, this is cool. And then of course immediately you see Wendy's synth blood like kind of flows down her face. She passes out. Jo runs to her. He passes out because he's bleeding out basically too. So that's a great opening scene, and it kind of shows their kind of brother sister dynamic, that they're willing to sacrifice their lives for each other. So we get more of like, interesting dynamic of how strong of a relationship they had and still have. Then we kind of see like what the other kids are doing. And this is like, it's interesting, like we're starting to see some development among, especially the girls of the group. Like, there's going to be like an interesting dynamic that's starting to develop here. Like Nibs clearly has like PTSD from her, octo eye attack in the previous episode. She's having some PTSD about that, and her and Curly start up a conversation, and Nibs is kind of like, why can't we keep our names? And Wendy's the favorite, and maybe she's a little bit jealous of it, but she's also kind of worried about Wendy, because they talk about how Wendy is like, they're all in this lab together, but Wendy is like out there with with the creatures, and she seems very concerned about that. But anyway, we see that Nibs definitely is going to be a character that's going to be battling some mental health issues. There's a scene later in the episode that makes it pretty clear that she has some issues going on, and it'll be interesting to see where they go with that. The other interesting thing is Curly is not a huge fan of Wendy being the favorite. She feels like she's better than Wendy, that she needs to be the favorite. And her and Cavalier have a conversation about it. She's very open about that, she thinks she's better than Wendy. Wendy's too caught up in what's going on with her brother. She'd be the better choice. She's got ideas, which she doesn't want to share with Cavalier, because she believes that he will take the ideas, and he basically says, yeah, I probably would. Anyway, so they have this interesting conversation. He agrees to give her some books and some other things to study, and they're going to get back together and have conversations. And I think Cavalier is very hungry, as we saw in the previous episode. He's looking for somebody to have that mind-blowing conversation with. He's looking for somebody to be smarter than him. He's looking to be able to go to the top of the mountain and have a discussion with somebody that blows their mind. He doesn't want to always have to be the smartest person in the room all the time. He wants to have a conversation with somebody that is smarter than him, that's more than him. So that's interesting, and it'll be really interesting to see like how the dynamic develops between Cavalier and Wendy and Curly, and how Wendy and Curly's relationship is going to go and how that's going to play out. I'm really curious to see where that goes. Um, what kind of, infighting or whatever is maybe is going to happen between them, or what kind of, is there going to be sort of court intrigue kind of things going on. So that'll be all interesting to see. I'm very curious about where that goes, and it's kind of nice to see that, okay, not everything's all nice and perfect, and I don't know if we really thought it was to begin with, but we're really beginning to see that, like, maybe things at Neverland aren't, all they kind of maybe are cracked up to be, because we also get another scene when they bring Wendy in for repairs where Dame and Arthur get in an argument about, we shouldn't have let it happen. Well, he, being Cavalier, let this happen, let them go in there. He kind of just has a, he wasn't worried to put like the super expensive tech like of kids out there to be damaged and all this stuff. So we're getting some idea that, Arthur especially kind of like, they don't like how Cavalier does some things. So we'll have to see, again, we'll have to see the kind of underlying tension and things that develop with that. Also, we get a little more depth to the Morrow character. We see that in the first episode, he was kind of stone cold. He welds the door shut. He lets the crew die, all to get the specimens because that's what Mother or Weyland-Yutani wants. So he comes across the boys are watching over the eggs while Wendy is off doing her thing. So Morrow comes over and has this very kind of weird and creepy conversation with the boys, trying to figure them out. He's kind of scaring them. He hooks up the computer to his. He hooks up the ship's computer to his head. We see this cool little light show while it's downloading the data into whatever cybernetic device he has in his brain that can contain it. And then, after he downloads it, he deletes the information from the ship. We see him implant a piece of tech on Slightly's neck that absorbs into his neck so you don't see it. And later on, Morrow talks with Yutani and they want him to come in, and he's like, no, my mission was, this whole crew died to bring these specimens in. I'm not going to let this go. My life mission is now going to go get these specimens and bring them back. So the way he does that is the device he implanted into Slightly, he's able to communicate with him. So we see towards the end of the episode, Morrow is communicating with Slightly and basically using master manipulation techniques to have an in to Prodigy and the island, because his goal is to get the specimens back. That was his mission, and he feels like he has to do that or there's no point in his life. Like, that's the mission in life now, is to get the specimens back. So it'll be interesting to see how that manipulation develops, how he worms his way in, if he does at all, how that works out. How far is Morrow willing to go? I'm really curious to see where that goes. Then we see that Wendy gets repaired. She wakes up. She's going down the hallways. Kirsch and a couple of the kids are working on looking at the inside of an egg. So they cut up an egg. The effects do a great job of making it all gooey and gross. They do this cool shot of the camera looking out of the egg, which I thought was really cool. And anyway, while they're operating or dissecting the facehugger they pull from the egg, Wendy is having like these seizures, like she's hearing these sounds in her head, and they get they basically extract like a baby xenomorph out of the facehugger, and she just hears all the screaming in her head and passes out. And then we find out that her brother Joe had a damaged lung that they removed, and they put it in a tank, and they basically release the baby xenomorph into the tank, and it implants itself into Joe's lung. And so that's going to be really cool to see what happens there and how that develops and what chaos ensues from that and what's Wendy's connection to the aliens. I'm just really curious to know. That's basically where the episode ends, and of course, as a metalhead, I gotta appreciate that they end on Metallica whenever, where is it? Wherever I may roam. Metallica. As a metalhead, love that. Anyway, that's all I have for this week. I will see you for episode 4 next week.